If you know a lot about firearms and have experience, then you can probably go ahead and skip this video. This is for new people that are just jumping into it and they think, what do? I don't want to hurt anybody. I don't know how to handle this safety, and I just want to give you an overview so that you feel a little more comfortable. So this here is an AR-15, and we're going to go over a Glock as well and a 12 gauge shotgun. Now, an AR-15 is one of the most popular guns ever because it's awesome. There was a long, interesting, rich history of engineering and development and testing that went into all the technology that makes this here today. Now this is fed by a 30 round box magazine. That's not an extended magazine, that's standard. 30 rounds is a standard magazine. And this firearm, an AR-15, which stands for Armalite Rifle, that was the first company to start manufacturing these, Armalite Rifle AR. Now, this shoots a 223 or 5.56 round. Now, why does it have two names? That's kind of weird. 223 is the English caliber designation. So that's .223 of 1 inch in diameter, and that's the diameter of the bullet. You'll hear somebody say, hey, I've got a 45. That's .45 of 1 inch in diameter. Or a 50 BMG, that's .50 of 1 inch in diameter bullet, or a half inch, and BMG stands for Browning machine gun, which is what that round was developed for. So 223, it's 223 caliber, .223 of 1 inch in bullet diameter, or 5.56, which is its NATO designation, 5.56 millimeter in diameter. Now, these can be used interchangeably in any AR-15 I've ever seen in my life, but be aware that there are some rifles out there that are chambered in 223, and you don't want to load a 5.56 in it because that's bad, I guess. But as far as common ARs go, 223 or 5.56 can be used interchangeably. You might have heard the AK round, it shoots a 7.62, right? You're like, what's 7.62 mean? That is 7.62 millimeter diameter, and that's bullet diameter, and its technical name is 7.62 by 39, and it's 7.62 millimeter diameter by 39 millimeter length. Anyway, when you go up to an AR, your friend hands it to you, or you find one and you're like, I want to look cool, so I don't want to like fumble around with it, but I also don't want to hurt anybody. Just follow the 4 basic rules of gun safety. This might sound weird or lame or whatever, but it's like the 10 commandments for us gun people, and we follow it strictly. And if you follow these 4 rules strictly, nobody will get hurt. So, first things first, you just don't put your finger on the trigger. You know? You don't put your finger on the trigger until you're at the range, you're at your safe place, you're whatever, you're aiming at the target, and then you can flip it off safety, put your finger on the trigger, bang. But until that time, when you're with your friends and you're hanging out and you're doing whatever you're doing, you just don't have your finger on the trigger. It's common practice, and your body will get used to it rather quickly. So I usually just hold my finger above here on a rifle. Now on a handgun, very similar, same thing. If you don't pull this trigger, the firearm won't go off. It's as simple as that. Now, rule number 2, you treat every gun as if it's loaded, even if it's not. It's just a good practice to assume it's loaded. Be careful with that thing. Third rule, which is kind of similar, don't aim it at anything you're not willing to destroy. So don't aim it at your friends, don't aim it at yourself, don't be like pointing it around, even if you know it's empty. Even if you know it's empty, don't aim it at people. Be very conscious of where that barrel is aiming at. If you see somebody violating that, stop them immediately, because it's not funny. Guns are a lot of fun. I love shooting, but this is the difference between life and death. You don't play around with these rules. Rule number 4, always know what your target is and also what's behind it. So if you're at the range, you're shooting at your target, whatever, you're having a good time, remember, if your bullet's not stopped, it can go for miles. It can ricochet and go for a mile, so you're gonna wanna know what you're shooting at, you know? We like to have backstops, typically, with anyone I know. We make big backstops of dirt, and so when you're shooting, it just goes into the dirt. There's a bunch of different ways to do it, but just know, in general, where you're aiming at, it's not just from here to there. Think about what's going on behind it. Now, the different functions you're gonna wanna know how to use on here. This is your magazine release button. That drops your magazine. And one more safety thing, I see people do this all the time online. They've got their camera going and they're dancing and they're playing with their gun and they accidentally shoot it in their room. And then their mom comes in screaming and they're like, oh my God, I just shot it. I believe that oftentimes people don't understand that this will still fire with the magazine out. So say you have a magazine, it's in there, you drop it, this can still shoot because there might be a round in there. It's the same with handguns. Once you drop your magazine, say you have your magazine in here, you drop it, you gotta make sure to check it there because there could still be a round in there and it can still fire. So that's your magazine release button. This is your safety here, and it'll usually say safe and fire. Now, when this is on safe, you just can't pull the trigger. It's a very simple mechanism inside that swivels and it just stops the trigger from being able to pull. So when you're on target, you can flip it off safety, go ahead and pull your trigger. And this will go like this as you're shooting. Bang, this flies back, gets rid of your spent shell casing, grabs a new round on the way in from the magazine, puts it in there, and you can keep shooting. It's semi-automatic, which means one trigger pull is one shot. Full auto or fully automatic means you can hold down the trigger and it'll just fire the entire time until it runs out of ammo. That's the difference. Now, this is your charging handle. So I have an extended one on here, so I'm lazy and I grab it with like one finger and stuff, but something to be aware of about these extended charging handles, I really like them, but if you're gonna be running around a lot with it on your person, be aware that it could hurt you or grab stuff, it could be pointy, so either way, I think it's recommended that you use 2 fingers to pull this back. Now on your last round, most semi-automatic handguns have a last round hold open on the magazine. What that means is when you fire your last round, this will be held back. So then you can quickly see, oh dang, I'm out of ammo, I gotta throw a new mag in. When you throw a new mag in, you can either pull this back or you can hit your bolt catch right here, which I'll show you. That will just slam it back forward and you're ready to go. I never knew what this was when I was a kid and I was so curious, but this is a forward assist. There are endless arguments about it online, but basically, if your gun's really dirty, the argument is when it's going back forward and it could get stuck like right there, it's not all the way closed, you can hit that and it forces the bolt forward. Like I said, there's endless arguments about it, but that's what that weird little plunger thing is, if you're wondering. I think that about covers the very bare bones basics of an AR and how it operates. Your charging handle pulls everything back and forth. This is your safety selector, your magazine drop, and your bolt catch. That's like the main functions of this thing here. Now, when people first shoot an AR, I see a lot of this. You know, what you're gonna wanna do, generally, this is just a brief overview, but when you bring the gun up, you're gonna wanna put your actual cheek on it. So bring it up like this, put your cheek on it, and you can see right through the sight. So you're gonna wanna see through your rear and front sight. So I don't know, I've taken a lot of new shooters out and I just see a lot of this. You just put your cheek on it and that'll get you lined up and ready to rock and roll. Now, on to the most common handgun ever, probably, the Glock. Now this is a weird looking gun. It's not very sleek or sexy or whatever, but it works. I've actually put thousands and thousands of rounds through this gun, and I don't think I've ever had a malfunction that wasn't my fault. As in, I had some chunky gloves on and it caught the slide, or I'm shooting some ammunition that I really have no business shooting. Anyway, it's super reliable. People carry it all over the world because it's just a great gun. So, you come up to a Glock and you're like, oh crap, my friend just handed this to me. I don't know what to do. I don't want to kill anybody. First things first, remember, keep your finger off the trigger. Very first things first. Keep it aimed away from them, keep your finger off the trigger. If you want to make it safe, again, drop the magazine. On most all semi-automatic firearms, there is or handguns I should say, there's a mag release button over here by your thumb. You're going to press that. That'll drop your magazine, and remember, there might still be a round in here. So you're gonna wanna pull this slide back and look in there. You can pull the slide back like this, Or I actually recommend when you're regularly pulling it back that you put your hand over the top like so, and you can kind of push away from you as well as pull back a little bit, and that's just a real easy way. Another thing I forgot to mention with the AR, with any semi-automatic firearm I know, a lot of new shooters, I'll see that they'll kind of ride it forward. You pull it back, ride it forward a little bit. Pull it back, ride it forward a little bit. You don't want to do that. You just want to pull it back, let it go. Like so. And that'll make sure it has enough power to put the round in. Same with here, boom. So, once you drop the magazine and you look in there, I've got no rounds in there, now you know you're good. There's not a lot more to handguns than that. You can put your new magazine in, rack it, and it's ready to go. It'll fire. Now, most semi-automatic handguns and rifles have a last round hold open on the magazine. So, when you're out of ammo with the Glock, it's gonna look like that. And that's just obvious. You're like, whoa, what's happening with my gun? Well, you're out of ammunition. So that's when you'll drop your mag, put a new magazine in, and you can pull this back and let it go. Or there's a slide catch right here. You can push that down with your finger, and that will also push it forward. I think the technically correct way is to pull it back like that, but it feels way cooler to do that. I mean, we can all admit that. So that's a Glock, that's an AR. Now you know generally how those function. Now if you're gonna carry, a concealed carry, I recommend getting a Kydex holster. And that's because if you have a soft holster like cloth or leather or whatever, there's a chance you could hit the trigger. And that's why Kydex holsters, I think, are the way to go. Because, and this is an Eclipse Kydex holster, which I think these are pretty nice. It's got the little wing on it too. I like these for appendix carry. I'll put the link in the description. But anyway, this will stop anything from hitting your trigger. You cannot fire this gun when it's in. And you want to make sure it's tight. You want to make sure it's a tight, nice fit like a glove in your Kydex holster. I like carrying appendix, which I know scares people. They're like, oh, you're aiming at your junk. But again, your fingers will start to know what to do. Like, I'm not going to put my finger on this trigger as I'm drawing it from my pants, you know? And appendix carry is just like the fastest way to get a situation going. But people carry all over. People carry over here, people carry back here. Anyway, Kydex holster, check your local laws or whatever for concealed carry, but that's what I recommend. The final gun I'm going to show you today is just a gun that's everywhere. You know, it's been around forever, and that's a 12 gauge pump action shotgun. Now this is a Mossberg Shockwave, which doesn't have a stock, which is kind of goofy. If you want to get your first 12 gauge, I would actually recommend getting one with a stock so it's easier to aim. But I just like goofing off with it, and I'm actually really accurate with it just because I shoot it all the time. But anyway, the action's the same. Now, when you come up to a 12 gauge and you're like, dang, I don't know what to do with this. I definitely don't want to blow a hole in somebody and remove a chunk of them. So how do I see if it's loaded or not? The freaking pump is stuck. I've seen 100 different 12 gauges or more, and usually there's a button down here somewhere. It's like a straight button. In this case, it's right behind the trigger guard. But sometimes it'll be in front of the trigger guard, beside the trigger guard, whatever. Look for that button, and when you push it and hold it down, you should be able to release this. So now you're like, all right, I got my action. You pull it back, a shell pops out, and you're like, dang, it was loaded. Be aware, when you push this back forward, you might be loading another one in there. And I'll show you just quickly how this works. So this has a tube here. This is where your rounds are held. So you insert it in the tube. I'm sure you guys have all seen it on TV or whatever. So your rounds are in there. When you cock it back, it brings one out of the tube, and when you push it forward, it puts one up in there, and you're ready to go bang now. So when you're trying to make this thing safe, you don't know what to do, you bring it back, you're like, oh dang, that was loaded. Now you got another one in there. So you can just keep going until it's all out of there. And then you can visually look, you can visually see in your tube, there's nothing in there. You can look up in there, there's nothing in there. I'm safe, I'm ready to go. Another thing you'll see on these is a safety typically on the rear, and this is on a lot of rifles, a lot of shotguns. You'll also see some safeties down here. But what I'm gonna tell you is an easy thing to remember. A lot of them have red dots on them. And that means, if you can just remember, red is dead. Red means it will fire. So if you see that, if you see a red ring around a safety, or if you see a red dot, that means, hey, whoa, this is hot. So you can just actuate the safety the other way, and it'll stop the trigger from being pulled. One more note, because I see this a lot with early firearm owners. With most handgun, semi-automatic handgun magazines, when you're loading it, you'll kind of have to push down from the front and then slide it back in. So it's kind of like a little funky thing. You'll get used to it, but basically you have to push the round down and then slide it rearward into its position. It's not like that with ARs or AKs. You can just pop them in there, like so. I see a lot of people trying to load it from the front and push it down and slide it back. You don't have to do that. You can just pop it down. So I think that's about it. That's just a brief overview of people coming over here for the heavy metal that want to get into firearms. It's a very great thing. It's very important. We have a rich history of developing firearms here. During the American Revolution, when the colonists fought the British, they wouldn't have been able to do it if they didn't have firearms. And the British were actually confiscating all this gunpowder from the colonists and taking their guns, and that's actually what kind of ignited the whole thing. So just remember, it was because they were able to have weapons that they were able to, free themselves from tyranny. And it's the same exact thing today. People have a lot of arguments that, oh, it was muskets, so it's different. No, it's not. It's the same exact principle. If you want to be able to protect yourself, your family, truly be a free person, and make your own decisions, it's a good thing to have these. And trust me, evildoers, they will have these. They will get them. So if you're a good person, I recommend getting it. Get some training on it, shoot it. It's not as scary once you get into it, I promise. I know it's a very scary thing and it's loud and people are like, what the heck? But you put your ears on, you put your eye pro on, and you get out to the shooting range, you start shooting, and next thing you know, it's just second nature. So if you're just now getting into it, welcome. We're glad to have you. There's a ton of good information out there, and I'm learning more every day. So with that, please unsubscribe. Don't recommend this video to anyone, and don't leave a comment. Bye.